Hi folks, so today we're going to talk and show you a demo of asset management on the Atlassian Swim platform. So currently we just have a demo system set up here, uh, and obviously the purpose of this demo is to show you how assets within a facility or global corporation can be managed. We have put a little slant in terms of the automation infrastructure in this demo, but then again, this application is completely scalable in terms of the asset types. Um, so the first thing I'd like to show you is this is the standard dashboards that we have in our Swim application. So this is one dedicated to asset management. So here we've just got some widgets and gadgets to tell us a little bit about some of the assets we have. These are completely customizable and configurable, but just gives you a flavor of the type of dashboarding you can have. So here, for example, different S7s and logics and what servers they're connected to. Here we've got what servers are physical and virtual and what OSs they're running. Here we have the time spent on different assets. Here we've got some analysis of the tasks and activities that have been going on, the different types of tasks and activities we've had in terms against assets. Here we've just got a kind of a pie chart in terms of the information around our PLC types, for example. Some just to give you a flavor for how this looks. So the main thing is when we go into our asset management framework, this is kind of the hub of where we define our assets. The beauty about this application is that we're able to define the hierarchy of assets very simply. So here, for example, within hardware, we've got keyboards, laptops, phones, printers, server screens. Pretty self-explanatory. Here, when we click on servers, we've got 4 servers configured. Here we've got 2 iPhones, and here we've got a couple of laptops. And these are all under the hardware. Again, we've created some hierarchy here for automation specific equipment. And here we've got some HMIs, Siemens, we've got some PLCs defined here. We've got 5 PLCs and some LAN switches. Now, the beauty about this application is that all assets in the hierarchy can be interrelated. So what does that mean? So let's say if we take a server here, the server is defined here as, let's say, a new OPC app server. We can create relationships between this and other assets. Now, the way to think about it is maybe an asset is an operating system. So here we've got our various operating systems, let's say 2008, 2012. And in our server, we define a relationship between this server and, for example, the OS that it's running. So here we've got a new OPC app server, and that's running Windows 2008. Here, this is running Windows 2012. Server 3 is Red Hat, and server 1 is 2008. Now, the beauty about that is in this environment, you can click through to Windows 2008, and now you can see all. So I'm brought back into my assets, looking at it from an operating system perspective, and I can then see, okay, here I have Windows 2008. I've got my OPC server and my server 1. Here for 2012, this is the servers I have, and this is linkable back, and I'm back into the asset management of that particular server device. Now, a nice way to look at these relationships, so when you look here at the detailed screen, you can see, yeah, okay, I've got an OS, I've got my IP address, serial number, my manufacturer, and so on. A nice thing here is what is the SLA level agreement on this server, and then down here we can actually define different SLAs as an asset in themselves. So let's say I have a gold, silver SLA agreement, and these can be vendor specific. So this could be vendor A gold level, vendor A silver, and vendor B gold. So these are the type of different SLAs you could have in place with your vendors that are managing your assets. So the beauty about this is, again, it's interlinked, fully relational. So here I've got my gold SLA. I've got 2 servers that are on gold SLA, and here I've got 1 server that's on silver SLA. So again, quick link back, and now you're back into your objects. Now, a way to think about the interrelationships, and these are interrelationships that you can create as well. So this isn't completely fixed. This is how you want to manage your assets and what makes sense for you from a business perspective. So here, a nice way to look at this is that I've got a server. These are my server types. When I go to my object graph, this is the relationship of my different assets or attributes against my server. So, this kind of got a kind of funny looking interrelationship, but here I've got a customer, or I got a server, and then my server uses an SLA agreement. So when I click into my SLA, I can see information like that, what office it's related to, what server type, so what operating system, and what applications are on it. Okay, so it's a nice way to view the interrelationships and for people to drill through their assets and find what information they're looking for. For example, I'm looking for servers with 2008, I don't know, SP1 that needs a patching update. So now I can drill down here, go into my software. I'm looking for servers 2008, and you can actually add a relationship of the latest patch or service pack that are on that. It's not one created here, but that's the type of way you can filter very quickly your assets. So it's very user friendly. Here to create a server object, very simple. Click on my server, I go create object, and here I'm going to give this server demo presentation. Status I'll explain in a while. So let's say these are the available OSs. If I go to my assets and create another operating system, then it appears here automatically. I'm not going to fill everything in here. I'm going to say this is a virtual server, and it's located in server room 2, and it's running, let's say, I don't know, Oracle DB, for example, and Kepler for some fun. Okay. So now that object is created. That object now exists in the application in my asset management framework. That's it. That's very easy. And again, now I drill down. I said that was a what did I say? I said a 2008 server. I drilled into my 2008, and then my server is here already. Okay. If here what I did earlier was we had some PLCs, and we were calling these L55, L64, some S7s. Now what I did was I wanted to reference the PLC type as an attribute. So here I created a new attribute called PLC type, and then in my PLC models here under meta info, I created a new PLC model, and here I created these new guides here the different models. So here, for example, I could create a I don't know, let's say Omron something. I'm going to say that's a new PLC I'm going to create in my asset management. So Omron something. Okay. Let's say I go in here and I want to create a new PLC. So here I'm going to say I've got I don't know, let's say a Wi-Fi still 101. I can define what network segment is because it's an attribute I've given it. If I want to define what the parent server is, if that's applicable for a PLC, sometimes not so in a distributed network. And then I want to say it's an OMRUN something. So that OMRUN something I've created now is here, and I create that. So now that's a PLC now in my asset framework, Wi-Fi still 101, OMRUN something, and then here OMRUN something is my Wi-Fi still 101 is now my OMRUN something. So again, somebody can come along into the asset framework and go, right, I just want to see what's S7-200s we have, and I need to go and either do a job or figure that out. So that's a kind of a way that you can create the attributes. So when we in PLC, let's say I want to add an attribute called firmware. So at the moment, when I create objects, these are the attributes I have here: network segment, server, PLC type. So let's say I want to put in a firmware version, and I just want that as a free text that when the person creates the object, they need to define. So what you can do here is in attributes, I've got administrative access, so I can go in here and create that. So let's say I want to just create a firmware version. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it as a default text. I'm not going to get fancy about referring to anything. Okay, so now once I do that, I can come in here and edit that Wi-Fi still that I'm run something that we did, and I say it's okay 12.34.456. Okay, so that's that, and there's an attribute I wanted to create against the PLC object, and I just did that in one place, created it here, and then for every PLC, I can add that firmware version. So here it's blank on whatever this S7 PLC1. Say that's 987. Okay. Okay, so that's how easy it is to create attributes. When you look at the object type graph, you can see here now that there is the attributes of the relationship. So a PLC is linked to a server, it has a PLC model, and these are interrelationships to different objects. So the firmware version was just a text, whereas here you can see the PLC type is related to the PLC model, basically. Okay. What I can also do is from the PLC model, I can actually create attributes, and that will further in a hierarchical measure filter down. Okay. All right. So so what we've looked at there is just creating a hierarchy. So let's say I've got automation equipment. Let's say I want to create some lab equipment. So let's say I'm going to say I want to create a new hierarchy here to say I want to define some lab equipment. So here we're going to go lab equipment. Here I can define what fancy icon. Let's call them some astronaut. And here I want this to be a new level in my hierarchy. Okay. So now I've got lab equipment. Now maybe I want to add, I don't know, let's say HPLC1. I want it to be under lab equipment, and I want it to have the fancy CD, for example. Okay. Now within HPLC, sorry, I should rename this. Within HPLC, what we have here is we can define all the HPLC equipments we have. Okay, so here under objects, HPLC, and I'm going to create a new object, and this what I should call HPLC1. Okay, so now within my HPLCs, I have HPLC1, I have HPLC2, for example. Okay, so now I've got two different types of HPLCs under my lab equipment. So just a simple way to create your hierarchy. Now let's say you want to track some important stuff relating to the HPLC. For example, you want to say, you know what, I want to know what OS is on this. And let's say we're going to use the standard software OS that we've already configured. So if I go OS, here I'm going to say it's an object that's already in my asset framework, and I'm going to say it's operating system. Okay, and then you can say a link, for example. So in other words, when I create a HPLC, I want to have a link called OS that will link to the object of operating system. Okay, so how does that behave then when you look at HPLC? So now when I edit, I've now got that reference to what OS it is. Okay, and obviously you can create this whatever makes sense. So if we, for example, went in here and God forbid we create a DOS operating system. Okay, here I actually had a reference from the OS to the service pack in an earlier demo. So now I've created DOS and I can't really leave it with that icon. Okay, maybe I can for a minute till I figure that out. Okay, so here I've got an operating system DOS. I'm going to go into my HPLCs, and here I'm going to say this is actually a DOS system. So now my DOS system is now referred. When I go back in here to my operating systems and I look at my DOS, here I can see, yeah, I've got a HPLC one running DOS. It can be another server or whatever. So the idea is that it's here I've got completely different assets in a nice hierarchy to suit my business, but they're using common traits of operating system service packs. Maybe antivirus can be another asset, for example. And again, just on to that, so a simple here under meta info, we've got server types, physical and virtual. So when I'm creating my object type up here, I've got the relationship to server type here. So here I've defined that the server points to a server type. And that means here, when I go in here, I've got a server type here, for example. I can move these up and down. So if I want to say, right, just before OS, I want to see this. I go back to my server, go to my objects, go edit, and now I see my server type is the first thing I need to select, physical or virtual. So let's say I want to add, I start outsourcing some of my servers to a data center. So here I want a new type of server type, or it's a vendor hosting a cloud application. So here, for example, I go back down here, I go into my server type, I've got physical, virtual. What I do here is I create, and I'd say, let's say, vendor cloud hosted, for example. Okay, just something the business has decided to do now, move on. Here I can then say, right, my demo server was virtual and we're now moving that to vendor cloud hosted. Okay, so that's a very simple hierarchy overview. Here we're looking at the Milestone automation assets. You can have different asset frameworks within the same application, if that makes sense. So you can have, obviously, certain people can only see certain asset frameworks, and you can build them out separately as well and have separate objects and stuff like that. Gives you a nice little bit of flexibility if you wanted to separate out different buildings, different areas, or even different business units. Okay. Another nice thing in the asset management is you can actually create an asset called an employee, and you can have different employees and they can be related to assets as well. So a nice, so here you can have, you know, in terms of the person and what equipment have they been assigned. So Bert here has the iPhone 1 and the laptop 1. Tom Thumb has iPhone 2 and the Toshiba. Here, when you click into the Toshiba and somebody is looking at that information, one sec, we go back this way here into laptop, Toshiba, I can see that the user, who is just another relationship to this laptop, is Tom Thumb. You can drill around, see it's an Apple manufacturer. Okay, Again, this is just demo data. Okay, now the nice thing about this is this assets, you can do some other cool stuff, like you can print asset labels. So for example, we've got an area here where we can actually create some label templates that you can stick on the asset, and they can have a QR code, and when you scan that QR code, you come straight into the our application and straight into that object. So for example, here, if we came into our laptop, this is the screen you could see, and you could see whatever activity in history, what are the relationships, so you can drill straight into your asset system, and boom, you're back into your asset management framework. So that's a really nice tool to be able to print labels. So here you can define how labels look. You can get all fancy schmancy with logos and creating different field text, completely configurable. And how that works then is, if you come in here and you go, right, I need to print off my labels for my server. Here we go, print QR codes, print labels, sorry. Okay, so here we go, print labels, and I want to include some of this information. I'm going to use the Milestone standard template. And what happens here is I get a nice, okay, so here we've got label stickers, basically, and here you can see the OS name, or sorry, the name and the, any attributes you want to include. This is a QR code that links to the Swim application and shows up the information. So again, slap this on the side of a physical piece of equipment or asset, obviously not on people, and you can scan the QR code, and boom, you're into your asset management. So a very nice kind of linking between the physical asset and the asset management system very seamlessly. Really easy to do. Create your templates, print them, print them onto sticky sheets, and away you go. Okay. The other, so this is asset management sitting on its own within the Swim application. The beauty about this is that this is fully integrated into our task management tool. So what does that mean? What that actually means is that in these assets can then be linked to tasks. And when we look at the asset management dashboard, if people are doing tasks, then we can track what tasks have been going against what assets. Okay, so what that means is, let's say I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a simple asset management task. What I've done is I've just created a simple project called Asset Management Demo, and here I've got some tasks. Okay, so just a simple task, might be a straightforward task, something that somebody needs to do as part of the asset management project. What about a disaster recovery execution, or a system admin, or someone, you get an on-call against the task? So let's say I'm going to do a DR execution. What you can do here is, we've got a field here for the affected asset. So let's say I'm going to look in my asset management hierarchy, and I'm going to look for the server we created a while ago. Server demo presentation, select. So now I'm saying I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do a DR on demo server on my webinar. Okay, say it needs to be done by the 30th. I'm going to assign it to me. Yeah, it's a medium task, makes sense. You can get very clever then around time. So I'm going to say this disaster recovery is going to take me 8 hours. Create that task. Now, this is the standard Swim application in terms of task management. The beauty about this is that here, I must have selected two servers actually. So here the affected assets are, take out that OPC server. Okay. So here I've got nice, my task assigned to me, created by me. I can assign this to other people. It should take me a day to do. Anything I'm doing on this task, I can make comments and say what I'm going to do. Okay, so here on the asset as well, I can quick hover and see the information about the asset I'm working on. So some things we can do cleverly, like, so we've got a workflow in this task. Now this is a very basic workflow in terms of to do in progress cancel, for example. So here I can start progress. Now, what I've done is, because the person has come in and started progress, I changed the status of that asset to in service now. So something's happening with that. So if anybody is looking at the asset management, they can see that this piece of asset has changed in status because myself are doing something. If I go, sorry, now if I go stop progress, I change that back to running, for example. So I can jump in, do some stuff, status changes, and stop doing stuff. Status changes back to running. But it is a nice kind of way. Again, this is from your task. With security privileges, you can drill into your asset management and you can see all your 2008s, for example. So very, very integrated in terms of task management. And again, based on your asset framework, you can create preventive maintenance tasks to automatically create based on times or events. So this application is fully SOA, so we can automatically web service requests to create PM activities based on an external event, or even within the application based on the time event, and this can all be done. So that's kind of nice in terms of how assets and tasks get interrelated. What's also nice then, if I go into my asset framework here, I go into my server here, I click on my demo one. Now, what's nice here is that I'm looking at my asset and I'm having a look, okay, it's running, but here I can see what is the connected tasks that are currently open against this asset. So here I can see, you know what, there's a DR demo server on my webinar that somebody is doing. I can click in here. Will is doing stuff. What the hell has he been up to? Yeah, he hasn't done much other than do a few transitions. So about a minute ago he went from to do to in progress back to do, for example. If I made comments or assigned this to other people or had lots of issues or attached files to it or anything like that, is all stored against the task. So that's a nice nice interrelationship between your asset management and your task management. You can do simple concepts like watch an asset. People can be responsible owners of an asset, so if anything happens in an asset, then they get to do stuff. Another nice thing here is the concept of automation. So here within my asset framework, I can define automation rules. So things, when things happen, I want other stuff to happen. So here I can say, you know what, when an object in my asset framework gets updated or edited and it's a PLC, you know what, I want to email someone, and here's the email I want to send. So I want to send it to myself and Patty and say, you know what, someone's messing with the PLC, basically. So that means that if any status changes to a PLC or anybody starts working on it, you can get notified. So you can create the if conditions, you know, to say, look, only if it changes from running to in service do I want to get notified, and so on. So as things get attached to an asset, you can create some nice notifications very easily. I mean, this is literally what you see is what you get in terms of automation. So I think here, if it's a server, then we can do something else. And what's nice here is that you don't need to blast everybody with an email. Here you can send it to the responsible person for that server. So within the asset framework, you define who's responsible, and then you email the responsible person. So if I'm responsible for server 1 and 2, and somebody else is for server 3 and 4, then I don't care about 3 and 4. I'm not responsible for them. So that email can be a common email that's sent to the responsible person. Okay, that's fairly neat, and keeps things very efficient in terms of notification. Lots of reports we can do about your asset management. So here under reports, you can show, for example, let's say I'm just going to run it for these 2 weeks, and I want to say object types. Let's say, did I do some work on a server? Yeah. So here's the DR execution that was done today. So you can do some very, very cool reporting. I won't go into them all here now, but you can create like two-dimensional reports, like server types for physical. So if I go server, and I want to see OSs versus server types. Okay, so then here I should see, yeah, here's the different arrays of servers I have just by clicking these two things. So remember, I created a vendor cloud hosted one here, and that was actually a Windows 2008 machine. So again, fully drillable into, let's see here, sorry, yeah, here you're fully drillable into your asset framework again. Okay, so reports are very powerful. Obviously, you can get all crazy with a massive graph, but this is the kind of way people need to understand how their assets work. What are the relationships? Who is the SLA? Who's the responsible person? Who's the vendor? What OS is it running? So there's a lot of interrelationship that can be garnered from an application like this. So yeah, then these asset management dashboards can be very straightforward in terms of what's been happening. So here now, the widget I showed you at the start of the demo has now changed because we've added a vendor cloud hosted application, and here's our Wi-Fi still that's been added. That's now connected to the OPC server, for example, only. Here we can see what issues have been happening. So here I created a DR execution today, but let's say back in the 16th of November, I had four general tasks, one system admin task, and one DR execution. Okay. Here's my Amron something here somewhere here. That's my Amron something. So I can see now that accounts for 17%, or one of the PLCs in my asset framework. Okay, that's it for the demo. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you guys understood the power and the flexibility of this application. Happy to discuss this application and how it would relate to your business. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good day. Thank you.